All right, welcome back to the Wide Ride Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro. He is Carlos Ledo, former backup dancer for El General. I of course am.
Dum, mommy, mommy. Yeah, baby.
I of course am a sports writer for the Athletic, occasional girls soccer and girls basketball coach. And Olivia, my daughter, my youngest, my 10-year-old, is playing her first middle school game today. She's still only in the fifth grade, but she will be the starting goalie this afternoon for Franklin Academy. And I'm a little nervous because these are middle school girls. These are seventh, eighth graders, Carlos. You, of course, coach middle school volleyball. Any advice? Do you have any fifth graders on the team, first of all?
No, because of the way the system's set up in the Catholic School League, you can only play varsity if you're in seventh and eighth grade. JV is fifth and sixth, so that's not happening. I have my debut today, my in-game debut for the middle school volleyball team, middle school girls volleyball team for my daughter.
1-0 every week, right? That's the word. That's the phrase that we use.
Yeah, let's see. The team we are playing today, we played them last year when my daughter was on JV. Did not go well. We lost 25-6, 25-3, I believe, in straight sets. So we'll see how that goes this year. They do have some eighth graders this year on the varsity that are pretty decent. You know, last year all they had was a JV team. So now we've mixed the seventh and eighth graders together. We look a little bit better. So hopefully some better coaching. We'll see what happens.
All right. Good luck to you. Good luck to Olivia today, this afternoon.
Hey, good luck to Olivia, and just tell her, listen, just go out there and do what you can, man. If you're scared of the ball when it's coming at you, you close your eyes and make yourself big.
Yes, make yourself big. That's what Miami's hoping to do this week, Carlos. As I make the rough transition to this USF game on Saturday at 4:30 on the CW, the place where you used to watch Smallville.
Yes.
And what are the shows that are on there, Carlos?
Remind me. I used to, Smallville was on there. I believe. What's the one with the two brothers that would hunt ghosts and demons and all that?
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Those memorable shows.
Yes. I used to watch Charmed on there with my wife. I used to watch Smallville. Used to watch
Veronica Mars. Was
right?
right?
Riverdale was on there. I think Buffy was on there for a while. Angel, right. I used to watch. The vampire shows that I liked a lot. I can't remember the names. So the ones that took place in Virginia, I used to like those. I forget the name now.
All right. So, but you used to tune into the CW.
The Originals was one of the spinoff of it. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Good shows. CW probably not getting the respect it deserves, but USF kind of like the CW, right? They're earning some respect right now.
We're really trying to make these transitions work, aren't we?
We really are. They're coming off a huge road win in Gainesville over the Gators, 18-16, in what was essentially a field goal fest between these two teams. Todd Orlando, former assistant to Mario Cristobal, is the defensive coordinator at USF for Alex Golish. He's done a tremendous job with this group, Carlos. They're coming into this game now ranked number 18 in the country. Your Canes, of course, coming off a 45-3 win. They're in the top 5 in the AP rankings. Looked dominant against Bethune-Cookman, did everything that they were supposed to do, scored on every possession that Carson Beck was in there. And he was efficient, highly efficient, and then completed his first 15 passes, was finished something like 22 of 24, didn't turn the ball over. These two teams have played really clean football. USF, though, has more wins over ranked opponents right now than Miami does. They've got 2 because they also beat Boise State when Boise State was ranked 25th in the preseason opener. Initial thoughts, Carlos, as we move into this Week 3 contest where it looks vastly different than it did a week ago when I picked the Gators to win at home over USF in a tight one.
Listen, you weren't the only one, but it shows how far this USF team has come and what NIL can do for you, but also good coaching, right? And a system to build these players up and get them to buy in your culture and get them to play to what the system is within the scope of the university and the team. So for me, I think the most interesting thing is, USF has really benefited from a couple things. One has been turnovers, and the other one has been penalties, right? So they're right. +6 in 2 weeks when it comes to turnovers. They were +4 against Boise State. They recovered 5 fumbles. They were +2 against the Gators last week, I believe. Or +1, were they? +2 against the Gators last week. So that's helped them a lot. The Gators committed, 11 penalties for 103 yards, I think it was, against USF last week. Their defense has not been able to get pressure on the quarterback. They've only got 2 sacks on the season and about 16 pressures. So that's interesting to me. If they can't get pressure on Carson Beck, and they've given up some big plays, but they've been a bend but don't break defense. I think what they've done is allowed teams to gain yards, get up close, and then have them settle for field goals, as the Gators had to do last week. But there was big plays to be had by the Gators. I think especially in that last series the Gators had before South Florida drove and won. There was a 3rd and 8 where DJ Lagway threw a perfect pass down the sideline with 2:44 left, and it just went through the receiver's hands. That would have probably iced the game for the Gators. And there were other opportunities for the Gators to score off long drives, but they just couldn't finish. I think, like we talk about a lot on the show, football is not just about talent, it's about matchups. And as good as USF is this year and as well as they've played, I think this is a bad matchup for them because this is not the offensive line that they're going to get pressure against. I don't believe, especially if you start Samson Okunlola at left guard. I think this offensive line takes another step forward with that lineup change. The other thing is I think the running backs at Miami and the way Miami can run the football is a lot better than what they've faced thus far. I think the Gators are starting running back ball was averaging like 5.2 yards per carry last week. I think they could see a lot more of that this week with a better offensive line and 2 backs that they have to face. They're similar size and speed in Fletcher and Brown. CJ Daniels has been making big plays. The secondary of USF has given up some big plays, especially last week against the Gators. And even they were saved a couple times where Gator receivers didn't make the catch or Lagway didn't make the throw. So I think it's a bad matchup for the USF defense. I think offensively, what's going to keep them in the game a little bit is Brown's ability to sort of scramble, make plays, and then in the design run game as well. And, Nimrod's a really good receiver too. He can make some plays down the field if they get him open, if Brown can get him the football. So I think, to me, this is a double-digit win for the Hurricanes. I think they win by 10-14 just because, the matchup is bad for USF. The accuracy of Carson Beck is going to be a big problem for them because he's going to hit those open targets and he's not going to miss them like DJ Lagway did a week ago. And, CJ Daniels makes plays. You got a bunch of tight ends you got to deal with now. That were incorporated last week, thankfully, a little bit. Hopefully that trend continues. But the running backs and the offensive line, to me, are the problem.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your overall general assessment. I broke down USF's roster pretty deeply here in the last couple of days just because I wanted to get to know them, and potentially there might be a team I have to cover in the college football playoff, because even if they lose this game to Miami, Carlos, I think by virtue of their wins over Boise State and Florida, I think USF, if they run the table and win the American Athletic Conference, there's probably not a G5 program that has wins like that, right? A Power 4 win over a Florida team and a top 25 win over Boise State. So I think ultimately they're in a very strong position coming into this game, regardless of the outcome, of being the favorite to earn the one spot in the playoff given to a G5 team. So look, Byron Brown has been excellent. Number one, their quarterback. He leads them in rushing. Has not thrown an interception since the next to last game of the 2023 regular season. He's not an elite thrower, but he's certainly a guy that knows how to get the ball off and to protect it well. I think something like 250 passes in a row without a pick, dating back to that 2003 game at Charlotte where he threw his last interception. So I think that he's going to come in here and protect the football. They're going to try to grind it out against Miami, keep, mix in tempo in the sense of, keeping Miami's defense off balance, not allowing them to switch personnel in and out of the field, and take advantage of breakdowns, right, when Miami's trying to switch players around. But
You froze up on me there.
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Are we
now
good?
I can hear you. Yeah, we're good.
All right. Their leading running back, their starter is Cartavius Norton. He's a kid from Charlotte that transferred over. Sam Franklin is a graduate transfer from Oklahoma. He's gotten some carries, and then they have East. Keep going in and out, don't we here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is. Hopefully the recording is going well. But Look, Chaz Nimrod is one of their top receivers. Kid from Tennessee transferred in. Of course, Goldish was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee, so naturally they're getting a lot of Tennessee guys. Mudia Rubin is another guy. He came over from Stanford. Kashawn Singleton is a former walk-on who they're not doing this with 4 and 5-star guys by any stretch of
Right.
the imagination. Weston Wolf is a Maryland transfer. He's one of their top tight ends. Wyatt Sullivan is an FAU transfer. He's one of their top tight. Again, none of these guys are blue chippers. They have one former blue chip recruit who is a starter for them on offense. That's Connor McLaughlin, the right tackle who came over from Stanford. He's a Tampa native, a guy that was very highly touted coming out of high school in the Tampa area, basically back home. They've got Zane Herring, who was a Florida State nobody, didn't play there. He's one of their starters at left tackle. The rest of their offensive line. These are not guys. So my point is, they're a hungry, overachieving group that believe in Goldish and what he calls, but they're also not a highly productive, high-scoring group. They just play with tempo and they take advantage of mistakes.
Right, and the way they've been doing that is, like I said, turnovers are huge for them because that gives them short fields and allows them to score points like they did against Boise State. It also limits drives for the opposition. They are not the type of team that's going to go on a 15-play, 95-yard drive or 80-yard drive. They live and die off the big play, right? So they've had most of their scores come off of big plays, whether it's big throw by Brown to Nimrod or Brown himself escaping, or even a fake punt week 1 against Boise State that went for 45 yards. So they are living off of what young scrappy teams do, right? Or teams that aren't as talented as other teams do. They play hard. They wait for their opportunity. They make big plays and cash in on those opportunities when they're there. They turn the other team over and they limit their own turnovers. So that's what they've been doing successfully. If the Hurricanes can limit Brown's explosiveness in the run game, keep Nimrod in front of them and not allow them to make big plays in the passing game, they're going to need their secondary to step up, especially the safeties, to make sure that if Brown gets to that second level, that he doesn't turn a 5-yard gain into a 30-yard run. So Scott and the nickel is going to be big. The safety coming down and getting that run fit, and the secondary support is going to be big to make sure they're short tackled. The other thing about South Florida, which I found interesting, is they've missed 36 tackles in 2 games. They're not a good tackling team.
Well, they play that 3-3-5 scheme, and so right off the bat, Miami is, you think about those 5 offensive linemen. They want to play with speed essentially, but that also means guys are missing tackles and getting run over.
Right, but I mean, you could be undersized and be a short tackler. Look at Scott for us in the nickel. Mm-hmm. He's been a very short tackler. He's been solid and physical up front of the line scrimmage. They're just missing tackles at the point of attack, which is a problem for them. So if they do that against Miami, it's going to be a long day. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I think sticking with USF's offense for a minute, and what they do, and then Miami defensively. Wesley Besaint in this last game only ended up playing 3 snaps. I guess he got targeting, right? He got tossed for targeting on the third snap of the game on defense. So he's fresh, relatively fresh. His body is, because backups played a whole bunch. Mohamed Torre played a whole bunch in that game. Raul Aguirre, Popo Aguirre has played really well, I think, in the first few games here for Miami. So those linebackers, it's going to be their job primarily, I think, to stop Byron Brown from finding holes and finding gaps in Miami's defense and keeping drives alive. They're going to have to be on their P's and Q's. But traditionally, Corey Heatherman's defenses have done a pretty good job against running quarterbacks, which is something that was a problem for Miami in the past, right? With other coordinators and other people. So I think between Keontae Scott, like you said, in the nickel, those linebackers, Miami safeties, guys like Jacoby Thomas and Zechariah Poyser, those guys are going to have to stay disciplined and in their gaps. And if they do that, then I think Miami can get the job done against USF.
Well, talking about discipline, I think their eye discipline is going to be key because they like to run quarterback counters up front with Brown and their running backs. So they need to make sure that they're disciplined and stay in their lanes and don't fall for the counter fakes, especially when it comes to Brown and the quarterback counters that they run a lot and quarterback leads. The other thing is Mesidor and Ruben Bain need to be more disciplined on the edge. They can't just fly upfield and try and attack Brown. They're going to have to be more disciplined in their pass rush and how they attack and the angles they take towards Brown to make sure he doesn't bust around them. That if he does try and bust, he tries to bust up the center of the field or the line of scrimmage. That way the linebackers can come in to support.
Yeah. Look, USF has not put up a lot of points this season. In fact, you go back to that Boise State game, I think they were up 10-7 at the half. They have not gotten in the end zone a ton. And I don't know, Alex Goldish is an offensive guy. but really they're winning because of their defense. So I think, Miami controls the clock on offense, and those offensive linemen set the tone. This is a game they should win and not be. We shouldn't be fearing for Miami in the fourth quarter in this game if things go according to plan. Let's flip over to Miami's offense. We mentioned Carson Beck and the start that he had against Bethune-Cookman, 15 for 15. One thing he hasn't done here is thrown an interception. He hasn't made any mistakes yet. You mentioned how USF has done a pretty good job creating turnovers. I mentioned the 3-3-5 setup that they have on defense. Let's take a look at USF's defense real quick here. And I'm going to mention, we talk a little bit about personnel. Josh Seliskar is one of their edge rushers. He's a guy who was at Texas A&M last year, but really his entire career was spent at UCF. Really good player for them, really high-level performer. He's played the most snaps for them on the defensive line so far. All of these guys are grad transfers. It's crazy how old this team is on defense. You got Seliskar, you got Rico Watson, who's another edge rusher, comes over from Robert Morris a year ago. DJ Harris, a Texas transfer. He's actually a former blue chipper, the one blue chipper, ex-blue chipper that they got on their defensive line. Devin Lee, a kid from Vanderbilt, has started for them at defensive tackle. He's a graduate transfer. And then you have Jacob Merrifield, a 2025 FAU transfer, a guy who has started 14 games in his career. These are all older guys that just get the job done, but they're not big bodies, Carlos. They're not at all. And to me, you mentioned Samson Okunlola. We talked about Markel Bell. We've talked about, the guys on Miami's offensive line. This is a game where Inez Cooper and Francis Mauinoa, I think the right side of Miami's offensive line needs to dominate this game.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there, and I think it's also there for the left side of the line if Okunlola comes in there. I think Markel Bell has been better than I anticipated in his pass blocking. Run blocking still needs some work. Obviously, he's a big dude. It's harder for him to pull and move and do those kinds of things. But he'll get there, I think, eventually as he gets more athletic and time goes on. But at the very least, when he's pass protecting, I've noticed the last couple of weeks, it's sort of like a planet with a gravitational pull. Mm-hmm. The second somebody runs right at him and they are in his orbit, they're not getting away. So yep. To me, the only way I think they can get pressure if you're rushing from that side of the field is nobody's tried to run like what they used to call a wide 9 in the NFL, where you get a defensive end, line them up way wide, angle them in towards the tackle, and try and use a speed rusher, use your momentum and speed to get around that big tackle. The other thing to me is, it's not only that these guys are undersized, but they're going to have to try and use blitzes in games to try and get to Miami. And I think with an experienced quarterback like Carson Beck, that might not be the best way to go. Just because he's going to be able to identify that, throw hot, and get the ball to the right receiver. So you're left with, what's the other option? Play off, try and force Miami to run the football, slow the game down that way, and see if you can get them off the field on a third down or hold them field goals, which is what they've done thus far. USF's whole game plan to this point in the first two games of the season has kind of looked like my game plan in college, which was lull the girls to sleep, get them laughing, and then before you know it, you scored. That was the game plan. Did it always work? No. But it was enough to win, It was enough to get you by.
Right. You were able to score a few times. All right. Their linebackers, not very deep. They roll about 8 deep on the defensive line, Carlos, in terms of guys that are in the rotation. So they will roll guys in and out, and those guys will perform for them. But at linebacker, it's basically Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler.
Yep.
Are the two guys that are basically 3-year starters at linebacker for them. They're big-time players. They're leading tacklers, the guys that make everything. They're the third linebacker they have is Xavier Henderson. He's a sophomore. He's played 13 snaps. That's it. So it's basically 2 dudes that do it all for them. They basically have 2 guys that are going to be really tired. And I think if Miami runs the ball effectively on them, they're going to be exhausted by the end of the game. The secondary, a lot of homegrown products in terms of guys that were here already in the system for them. Tavin Ward is their free safety. Former JUCO 2-star guy in the 22 class. Fred Gaskin, remember covering him in the 7-on-7 circuit. He's their strong safety. He's a sophomore. Deshaun Rucker, one of their cornerbacks. He came over from Tennessee 2 years ago. And then James Chenault, he's the other cornerback. He's a sophomore. Playing really a lot for the first time. Chenault is kind of a guy that you look at and say, that's who you want Malachi Tony to go up against and expose maybe for a few times in this game because he's just young and inexperienced. I know Tony's a freshman as well, but Tony plays the game like a guy who's been playing college football for a while now, and I think that much was evident even last week when he continued to show him and Carson Beck have some really good chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he could take advantage of the nickels there against USF. And I think, if they can get the linebackers in coverage against the running backs, maybe get Fletcher or Brown in a pass pattern, get them in active, or get, a Lofton, Elijah Lofton in a pass matchup with a linebacker. I don't think that Harris and, what's the other guy, Schuler?
Yeah,
Are very good in
Mac
coverage.
Harris and Jalen Schuler.
Yeah, especially Schuler. He's not that great in coverage. His coverage grade is 52.8. Mac Harris is better, and I think he's a better linebacker. But if you can get Schuler matched up on one of our tight ends, I think that's a good matchup to take as well.
So if you're counting stars at home, I told you already, they've got one ex-blue chipper on offense, their right tackle, and one on defense. Okay, that's it. That's it in terms of guys that actually play for them. So Miami, physically, if you believe in the recruiting rankings, should be able to go into this game and pack a wallop. Now, Florida was supposed to do that last week, but DJ Lagway and company did not perform well. I watched the end of that game. I don't know how much you watched of that Florida game, but I thought they kind of shot themselves in the foot quite a bit.
Yeah, I watched. I was in and out, and then I watched the fourth quarter. But yeah, it was embarrassing to see. Or at least for a Gator fan, for me, it was fantastic. But I was hoping the Gators would win that game just because you want them to be as good as possible coming into that matchup against us. But then either way, at least we got the advantage of USF being a top 25 team coming in this week. But to me, it's one of those things that the first 2 weeks, really, USF has benefited from mistakes from their opponent.
Yeah.
Either forced or unforced, they've benefited from those mistakes. If Miami can keep the mistakes down, penalty-wise and turnover-wise, there's no reason they shouldn't beat the crap out of this team. I think by at least 10 to 14 points.
I'm in agreement. Let's talk big picture now. We've kind of broken down this game. You said you think Miami wins probably by 10 points or more. I'm in agreement. I think this is a game that, look, USF was in this game with Miami last year up in Tampa up until the third quarter, and then Cam Ward and company kind of just hit the afterburners. I expect kind of a similar game, Miami being at home. And one thing I think we can talk about big picture wise with Miami is this isn't the same offense with Cam Ward where they're trying to race up and down the field. They know they have a good defense, and they're willing to let those guys be on the field and do their thing. And Ruben, we haven't even talked about Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor yet, but Bain again had another forced fumble this past week against Bethune-Cookman. I think he's rated like the number 3 overall defensive lineman right now by Pro Football Focus. He's done an unbelievable job. Looks completely healthy. This is the kind of game where USF could just try to run everything opposite Ruben Bain and not let him sort of be a wrecker. I'm very interested to see how he plays in this game for that reason, because of a mobile quarterback, because of a guy like Byron Brown who is slippery. I want to see what Ruben Bain does in this game. But I think big picture wise for Miami, what else are you looking for in this game overall from a big picture perspective?
Well, I tweeted this week, I think Bain and Mesidor are the best defensive end combo in the country right now. And Mesidor has played really well as well. And I think his sort of advantage over Bain is that I think he's better against the run. I think he can set the edge and really take that. If they try to go opposite Bain, they go at him, they're going to run into a wall. That dude is legit. So I think they're very talented on both sides of that. For me, what I want to see is, there's that old saying that I used to hear growing up from coaches all the time, which was kill a mosquito with an axe, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're good, right? If we're top 5, if we're really a top 5 team in the country, you come into this game at home with a crowd that's going to be loud, excited for a top 25 matchup on the CW, baby. Come on. The home of Smallville, right? Listen, you have to be excited for this game, and you kill a mosquito with an axe. You come in there, you dominate from start to finish. The way you do that is you physically impose your will on the opponent right from the jump, and you let South Florida know that it's going to be a long day. And if you could start that going, by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, South Florida is going to be fatigued. They don't have the depth that Miami does. Even their frontline guys, as we've talked about, are a little bit smallish. So there could be some injuries. There could be some cramps. There could be, in these games, especially for South Florida, coming off 2 straight top 25 matchups, now facing a top 5 team. This is no easy slate for them to start with.
No, it isn't. And you think about what it's like emotionally to be a member of USF, to have to get up, 3 weeks in a row to face, teams that are supposedly better than you. I guess as a player, you get excited. You're like, man, we can really send a message to the rest of the country that we're a legitimate program. I certainly believe Alex Golish is an excellent football coach, Carlos. Like I'm I'm not surprised by any of this, and nobody should really be, because go back to last year, even when they were 7-6, and the year before that, like they were giving Alabama a game, right? Think about that, right? Like, did we forget this is the same program that had Nick Saban sort of on the run before he stepped aside and handed this program over? Like they've done a good job competing with Power 4 teams in the past. They've certainly beaten Miami before. Don't forget they beat Randy Shannon, right? What was that, 3-0 game or whatever, that horrible football game way back when that I had to cover? It was so boring. There were a lot of games that between Miami and USF that have been played to this point that have been competitive. So I expect this one to be competitive and emotional, because those guys are going to be fired up for it. But ultimately, I think the Canes are going to pull it out.
Yeah, and they based on their first 2 weeks, they think they're going to come in here and they're going to be, like in Friday, at the end of Friday when Craig knocks out Debo, the David versus Goliath, they're going to come in here. They're going to. I think this week is going to be more like they're Red. The other guy, the original guy that got knocked the F out at the beginning of the movie, where Debo snatched his chain and took some for his 40. That's what I think is going to be like this week.
6-1 series lead for Miami all time. I will say this. I spoke with their athletic director, their former athletic director, a couple of years ago, and I spoke to Alex Goldish when he took over the program a couple of years ago. And USF is spending money like, I don't want to say a P14, but close to it. Like among the G5s, they are spending more money than anybody else. And I think geographically, it's sort of a fun rivalry, right? I mean, we've got Miami and Tampa. You got the Dolphins and Bucks. It's in terms of history, obviously it doesn't have what Miami, Florida, and Florida State have, but it's something that going forward, why not play this game more often, right? Why not make this a legitimate rivalry, especially if USF's going to be a team that knocks off other ranked teams like Florida and Boise State and is competitive every single year. I think it'd be a good, you think about locking down a G5 opponent, right? Miami's, I talked to their athletic director recently, and he talked about how going forward they want to have kind of 10 Power 4 opponents every single year on the schedule going forward. I think ideally, if you got to have one G5, why not play USF every single year? It'd be fun to have this rivalry every year.
Yeah, I mean, I always love in-state rivalries and games like that because of the passion it brings out in the fan bases, right? And a lot of these kids, although, there's so much talent in South Florida that they don't always go to Miami, Florida State, or Florida. They end up now in different places within the state, like FAU, FIU, UCF, and USF. And I think if you could rotate those teams, it would be fun to see those matchups on a yearly basis, right? Whether you're playing USF every other year and then UCF in between and FAU every once in a while and FIU every once in a while. Maybe not FIU. I don't want to bring up those memories anymore. Jesus, Manny Diaz. Anyway, the other thing I want to tell you, Manny, is please don't curse on the podcast anymore. You said something that's a curse word right now, and I don't want to hear it again. It's the name of the NFL team that plays down here. That is a curse word. I don't want to hear that right now because I have suffered way too much. And this past Sunday was just, as we say in Cuban, la tapa pomo. Like, that's it. I've had enough. That is the straw that broke the camel's back. That is the hit that broke Tua's brain. I'm done with the Dolphins.
All right.
I curse myself now.
All right. Let's look ahead to the rest of the schedule here. We mentioned the Gators. That's a game that's in 2 weeks. It's going to be a night game at 7 or 7:30 p.m. on ABC or ESPN. And then you got the big game at Florida State on October 4th, coming off of a bye. The Seminoles are now 2-0. They beat the crap out of East Texas A&M 77-3 last week. I'm curious, as you look at this schedule and some of the developments. SMU lost this past week into Baylor, which I predicted, by the way. You have the Pitt is off to a 2-0 start. They've got the game against West Virginia. When you look at the schedule right now, Carlos, what is the toughest game left on the schedule right now? If you had to pick an opponent and rank the top 3 toughest games left on Miami's schedule, what do you think they are?
I will give you the game that scares me the most right now. And it's not against who I think is the best opponent on the schedule, but far from it. It's Louisville. And this is
Louisville Friday night game.
Coming off of South Florida, Florida State in succession. That to me is scary because you're coming off a top 25 matchup now. You're playing 2 in-state rivals that will be in the top 25 as well. Especially after Florida and Florida State, you're probably going to have some guys banged up because of the intensity of those rivalries. Going into a Friday night game against Louisville, that to me is a concern.
All valid reasons to be a little worried about it. I think the Louisville game they're going to be coming off of a bye week. They play Florida State. They have another bye. They're going to be playing Miami playing one game in 3 weeks essentially, because they play the Gators on the 20th. They're off on the 27th. They play at Florida State on the 4th. Then they're off again for another week before they play Louisville on a Friday night. I think on paper, preseason, I would have put Louisville as the toughest game. Originally, I had SMU because I thought Rhett Lashley, like the job that he does, getting his guys up, going on the road to Dallas after, a first real road game of the season where you leave the state. I thought, well, this is a team that has played well for the most part since joining the ACC. But then last week, just how bad they looked on defense made me really feel like, okay, that's a game Miami, I think, wins now on the road. To me, it's Pittsburgh, the last game of the season, November 29th. It's like, dude, they've got a chance to go undefeated here, Miami does. Obviously got to win a tough game at Florida State because Florida State looks like a much better program. But to finish the season at Pittsburgh in the cold, I just get flashbacks to 2017 and having that opportunity.
Yes. But the problem is, I think the difference this year is that you have Carson Beck, right? You don't have Malik Rozier. Shout out to him. He had a great season. But by that time, it seemed like he had a shoulder injury. He wasn't the same quarterback at that point. He wasn't the same quarterback the next season. I think if Beck stays healthy, he's at a different level throwing the football than Malik Rozier was down here at the time.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more worried about the health. What about the overall depth of this team right now? How do you feel about, can Miami survive injuries as we look forward? I mean, they've been relatively healthy, but we'll go over some roster spots here, okay?
It depends on the spot, right?
Yeah, I think, look, Jordan Lyle has played 10 snaps. Started the opener, did not play last week against Bethune-Cookman. Hopefully he's back for this game. Miami could use a three-headed monster against USF because they're a legitimate opponent. But receiver, you've basically got CJ Daniels and Malachi Tony that are your main productive guys at receiver. You got Keelan Marion out there. You got Josh Moore. JoJo Traders played all of 9 snaps to this point. Are you comfortable with the receiver position and the performance?
Not yet. I think what you said is basically it. It's Malachi Tony and CJ Daniels pretty much at receiver. If you have an injury to CJ Daniels, I think you lost your number one receiver. And now you've got a problem on the outside. You lose Malachi Tony, you can maybe make that up a little bit. With Ray, put him in there or somebody else that can maybe make some plays, but not as at the level that Tony's doing it right now, I don't think. But I think that's easier to overcome than an injury to CJ Daniels on the outside because he's their clear number one receiver, and him and Beck obviously have some chemistry together. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, tight end, they're still not producing a ton of plays, between Lofton and Alex Bauman, but it feels like, Miami runs the football and maybe those guys are more of a sprinkled in this year than maybe highly productive guys. So in terms of secondary pass catchers, I mean, it feels almost as if the running backs would be more involved maybe than the tight ends. Lofton's lack of sort of production so far is a little surprising to me because I thought he would be more involved, but maybe they're saving him for Florida and Florida State and they're just kind of hiding that part of the playbook.
I mean, they tried to target him this past game against Bethune. They actually gave him some quick screens and made a point of going to target him. So hopefully that continues and do it a little bit more in a more evolved way moving forward. I think it was just sort of this past game was just trying to get him touches, get him involved, keep him happy, let him know that he's going to be a part of the offense. Hopefully that continues. As far as other injuries, I mean, if you lose, Mawanoa at the right tackle, Inez Cooper, I think you've got a problem.
Right. Some of these offensive linemen got work. Okunlola's played 80 snaps to this point. Matthew McCoy has played 68, even though McCoy has started both games. So in terms of the left guard spot, Okunlola's actually getting more reps, more work. Then, he's kind of the sixth guy. And then you have Rodriguez, Kinsler, Alafatul, the freshman, and Max Buchanan. Those are the guys that played against Bethune-Cookman that came off the bench and actually performed. So I don't know. I think you're right. I don't know that you really have a replacement at left tackle. You'd have to start shuffling Mawanoa around and move other guys around if you were to lose.
I mean, if Markel Bell gets injured, you could slide Okunlola out there and then put McCoy in, which you'd be okay. I'm not, as you know, I think McCoy's okay. He's not great. But I think if you have an injury on the right side, that might be a problem. I just don't see that second team offensive line. I think there's a big gap between the starters and that second team offensive line right now.
Yeah. Again, we'll see. Hopefully they stay healthy and they don't have to worry about that.
Well, you're the one jinxing him talking about injuries, Manny. I'm
Well,
not doing it. I just want everybody to know it's not me.
When I do my assessments of teams, I always look at, do they have depth? And I think that's an important question, right? Like the old Miami teams that won championships, you like these games against Bethune-Cookman, you start to ask yourself, well, do you really have depth, right? Like, do you really have a guy that could step in that you could count on? I think I saw that at safety. When you look at defense and you flip to the other side of the field now and depth, that Bryce Fitzgerald kid, I mean, that was an incredible close on the ball for the pick that he had. Granted, it's Bethune-Cookman, but
yeah,
the way Mario and the staff have talked about him, he's a kid that got into school late, but I know through the recruiting trail they were very excited about him from Miami, the kid out of Miami Columbus. You talk about the safety position. I know you weren't necessarily happy with the way the safeties looked at the opener against Notre Dame, but maybe Bryce Fitzgerald is a guy who really emerges here over the next few weeks.
I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a starting job because I don't think they were great against Bethune either. I think they were okay, but we'll see.
Yeah, I like the depth in the secondary. Linebacker, I think Popo Aguirre has played really well when he's been in there. So I think they've got a legitimate 3 there. Chase Smith has played 24 snaps to this point. Jalen Alderman, 15. Cameron Pruitt, 14. Pruitt is a guy that I know that they were really excited about. He's kind of the strong side linebacker, kind of a hybrid type guy. But they haven't really used him a ton to this point. I think as long as Torre and Besaid are healthy, you've got a solid 1-2. If one of them goes down, I could trust Popo Aguirre at linebacker. But beyond that, I'm not overly, excited about the group if there were more injuries than that.
Yeah. I totally agree.
All right, we got some questions in for the mailbag, Carlos.
Let me roll my sleeves up.
Roll your sleeves up. We're gonna try to wrap this thing up here quickly. This is from Vic.
Yeah, I gotta get my game plan ready for middle school volleyball tonight, baby.
Yes, we both have work to do, brother. We got things to go.
I got a 4 o'clock game I gotta prep for.
I gotta get ready to cheer on Olivia at goalie. God only knows how that's gonna go. Question from Vic Vassell, Coach Vic 4. Does Malachi get 1,000 yards receiving?
No.
I'm going to say no as well. And the only reason I'm going to say no is because you look at last year and you look at 23. Miami's had 1,000-yard receivers each of the last 2 seasons. Restrepo's been the guy in that position. But I just don't think they're going to throw the football as often as they did the last 2 years. Right or wrong, right? Like I think the opportunities, CJ Daniels and Malachi, I think are without question a legit 1 and 2. So they will get a lot of passes thrown their way. But I don't know if he's going to end up with 100 targets. Right now, Malachi Tony's got 12 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown. That's 6 catches a game. What's 6 times 12, Carlos?
72.
Yeah. Add in the ACC championship game, let's say it's 78 to somewhere to 85 catches. Do you get to 1,000? Do you get to 1,000 yards with 85 catches? Maybe
he's gonna keep. Maybe if he keeps averaging the 14 yards a catch that he's averaging right now. I don't know that he gets 85 catches though.
No, and that's the problem. I think certain teams are going to try to start taking him away and game planning for him and challenging CJ Daniels. The thing with Malachi Tony, guys, is that he has another gear, right? CJ Daniels, he's your veteran. He is not an extra gear guy. Tony is the guy who's special.
Right.
And CJ Daniels played phenomenal to this point. And I think he's great for this receiver room. I think he's been a great leader. But Tony's the guy I think defenses are going to game plan around. Right or wrong?
Yeah, he's the explosive guy. I think CJ Daniels uses his body well. He's got good hands. And he's got some speed to him, but he's not the explosive guy that Tony is.
Yeah. So I'm going to say no, Vic. I think he'll be right around 900 yards, probably 70 catches is my guess. 70 for 90, for 900 rather, and probably 7 or 8 touchdowns. I mean, that's an ACC Rookie of the Year type season, which I think that's what's going to happen. All right, this question is from Ron Mexico 718. Is Elijah Lofton a Green Tree All-American? He's as concerned as I am about Elijah Lofton and why
Yeah.
he hasn't made a bigger splash. I listen. I like Elijah Lofton a lot. I think he is a supreme talent. I don't think Mario is the kind of coach who is going to talk up a guy who he doesn't honestly believe in. Because even privately, like it's those conversations about Lofton have always been, you know, he's a dude. I think they've been saving a lot of what he's going to do for the better opponents on the schedule. I think there's going to be times when he lines up in the backfield and gets carries, catches the ball. I think they're saving that part of the playbook for bigger opponents. So, am I ready to label him a Green Tree All American, which we know is code for overrated? No. Agree or disagree, Carlos?
Yeah, I think it's a little too early. I think it's tough when you have a game like Notre Dame and you're just trying to get in there, and it's game one. You're trying to just get the win and get it over with, and then still doing it in a way that you're trying to maybe save some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the last week against Bethune, there wasn't a whole lot you could do. They tried to get him the football and get him some touches, like we said. We'll see what happens moving forward. I think it's also matchup dependent. If they feel they have a matchup, they could use him and be sort of that X factor where they could really take advantage of a defense. They'll use him. I think you may see him a lot more this week. If it was me, if I was the offensive coordinator, based on the way these linebackers cover, especially Schuler specifically, if I can get him matched up on Schuler, then I'm going to him because he could take advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are elements of this, again, just speaking about Lofton, I view him as a Malachi Tony type. I view him as a special weapon that just hasn't maybe been utilized yet, and I think he will be at some point here soon. This is from Tony Perez, Big Chilean 63. Will this year's receiver room be better than last year's? Well, I think potentially you have two legitimate dudes who are gonna put up really good numbers. I think you've got two guys that are threats. Last year you had three, right? You had Xavier Restrepo, you had Jacoby George, you had Isaiah Horton. So three trumps two, right, Carlos?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think to me they don't have that third guy like a Jacoby George or a second number one like they did a year ago. They have Malachi Tony in the slot, but they don't have another outside guy this year right now.
Right. I think we're in agreement. All right. This is from David Engelson on Twitter. This feels great and all, but this next stretch of games will determine the Cristobal era. We've been ranked number 2 under Coach Richt. We've been back before. I want to believe, but these next few games can make or break this program. Agree or disagree?
I think they can, but I think it's going to be more telling what they do in ACC play. And here's why. They can beat Florida. They can beat South Florida. They can even beat Florida State. But like I said, that Louisville game could be a trap game. That's a problem. They've had a history of dropping games against ACC opponents that they should not be dropping. The other thing about playing ACC opponents is by that time, there's enough film on you when conference play rolls around and these opponents know you well enough, know your personnel well enough, that they are more prepared than the teams you've played earlier on in the season, even if they're ranked higher. So to me, a team like Pitt at the end of the season, like you said, is probably going to, and SMU and other teams, of Virginia Tech, is going to be more prepared to play them than Notre Dame was to start the season. Because there's more film, there's more opportunity to prepare, and they know them better as a conference opponent. And they've already schemed against them a year ago. So the only difference this year is a new defensive coordinator, but offensively, they know what Shannon Dawson brings over the last couple of years. So to me, the telling stat or the way this story unfolds this season is, can they handle the early success, which I think they're going to have, and they continue that throughout ACC play and not drop a dumb game like they've done in the past.
Right. Yeah, I am very nervous. I am still nervous about the end of the season. I'm still nervous about the depth of the receiver room, and I'm still nervous about injuries to key areas. Is the depth really there? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself as you watch them the next few weeks, is could they survive an injury here? And ultimately, that's what separates elite programs from everybody else, right? Ohio State loses somebody, Georgia loses somebody. Usually there's somebody there to fill in those gaps. And I think Cristobal has recruited to that point, but you still need to see if guys can step in and deliver. And so, to me, that's what this season comes down to. Does Miami survive the injuries that are going to happen, because you never stay 100% healthy. We talked about JoJo Trader coming into the season, and I told you guys, I said it repeatedly. He's a guy that I always worry about because he has a frail body. We've seen
Yep.
him very little, right? He's made very little impact. So, you can have Green Tree All Americans. You can have guys that you get excited about, that you think, man, these guys are going to be special, but it doesn't mean anything if they can't stay on the field. And I think
Yep.
you look at every season in college football, injuries is what tells the story and whether or not you can survive it. And, look, this week against USF, they're going to be the more physical team. But then you've got back-to-back games against Florida and Florida State that are going to be physical battles, right? You're still facing an SEC roster. You're still
Yep.
facing a talented Florida State team that looks vastly different than the one that played a year ago. So you're going to have physical battles. You're going to have bumps and bruises, and then you got to go. Then you get into your ACC schedule for real. Beyond that, right? Like you start getting opponents that, like Carlos said, have game plan for you that are ready to go. So I think I'm concerned for those reasons. I still need to see more from this group. I need to see more depth. You've had injuries already. Guys are not playing. Jordan Lyle has not been playing. JoJo Trader has not been playing. Will they come back? Will they be healthy? Will they be able to contribute? We don't know the answers to those questions. So
Yeah,
I
and you know
think
what? Interesting enough, to me, it's South Florida, obviously. I don't get too excited about these types of games, but I think Emory Williams, the way he threw the football, looked a lot different than he has the first couple of years. I think he threw the football a lot better with a lot more force than he has his first couple of years here in Miami. He looks a little bit different at quarterback, and that's encouraging to see. And I was happy to see, Pringle. They popped the Pringle, and he looked pretty good. And the law firm, Wheatley Harrison or whatever his name is, it looked pretty good as well. So they've got some depth at running back.
they do. Not every position is like that, but receiver, I'm still a little doubtful. All right, last question. This is from Corey Lowe. I know it's early, but do you think the Canes are now the favorite to win the ACC? Good question to sort of wrap this thing up on. Clemson struggled against Troy, Georgia Tech this week. They have not looked the same without Antonio Williams, who's their number one receiver. Their offense has sputtered quite a bit. Clemson was the clear preseason favorite. But last night, I was on a hard rock bet app, and I was tempted to put $100 down on Canes ACC championship based off of what we've seen this far. Ask you a question: if I were you on right now, you got 100. Are you putting it on to?
We're breaking up again, but if you can hear me, I would say, to me, I think the Canes are the favorite to win the ACC right now, based on what they did against Notre Dame, and hopefully what they do to South Florida, Florida State moving forward. But again, if history's told us anything, there's always that one game, man. There's always that one game where they slip up, or there's always an opportunity for them to shit the bed. If they can prove that they are no longer that team that has that mental block where they can't get over the hump, they will win the ACC. I think they're better than Clemson this year. I think overall, like you said, if they avoid injury and they don't have to dig into the depth, and they make it to the ACC title game relatively healthy, I think they should win it.
All right, I'm gonna add a couple questions in because we're getting them here live as we're
Oh, I
streaming.
like that. I like that. Live streaming questions.
This is from Jake Campbell, the one coach soup. He says, "What's up, gentlemen? Two questions. Why does every college pundit praise Dawson, but Carlos hates his guts? Did Dawson steal his girlfriend in high school or kick his dog in the park? LOL. Because you can never look ahead too soon in this new landscape. Does Miami already have the QB on the roster post Beck, or are they going hunting again? I like the Cal quarterback. Locals like CJ Bailey. What about you guys?" So two questions here. Why do you still hate Shannon Dawson's guts?
I don't hate him. I just don't praise him, and I don't do what a lot of people do, which is hang on his nuts. Because I've seen what he's done, and I've seen the way he schemes, and it's not impressive to me. I don't think were they overly impressive against Notre Dame on offense? They were okay. Scored 27 points. I mean, that's good, but it's not what they were doing a year ago without Cam Ward, right?
Right.
Were they really, really impressive this past week against Bethune? They were good, but they were better last year against Florida A&M, right? Similar opponent. But, that's just me. I see the way the guy schemes. I see the way he calls games. I've told you a bunch of times, he does a great job scripting coming into a game. He's really good at that. But once the defense adjusts and they throw different wrinkles at him, he's not very good at handling that unless he has a quarterback that can adjust it for him. And we'll see if Carson Beck can do that for him. But for right now, that's my opinion on the guy. And no, he didn't steal my girlfriend. His mom broke up with me after I had a long torrid affair with her. That's a joke. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be disrespectful with Shannon Dawson and his family. That just slipped out. It's an instant reaction. I'm sorry. And what was the second question?
The second question is, because you can never look too far ahead in this new landscape, does Miami already have the QB on the roster post Beck, or are they going hunting again? I like the Cal quarterback, locals like CJ Bailey. What about you guys?
Listen, if there's somebody better out there than what they have on the roster, go out and get him. That's what I say. I think Emory Williams looked good, but that was Bethune. You have to see him in real action against a real team to make that determination. As of right now, based on what he's done in the past, he's not the guy. Can Luke Nickel be that guy? We have to see him play as well. They're holding him back, though, obviously, because they want to have him redshirt. So we'll see. I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you if there's a better quarterback than what they have on the roster available in the transfer portal, they'll go out and get him.
Yeah, it could potentially be DJ Lagway if the Gators, lose their next however many games in the next few weeks, and there's a coaching change there. Who knows? All right. Another question here. 2 weeks in, has your outlook on the Canes or the college football landscape changed? If so, why? If not, why not? This is Spurgeon Cigar. I said 11-1, and they'll get to the ACC championship game, but Clemson would beat them and they'd make the playoff. I think now, if anything, I give them a chance to win the ACC, a better chance to win the ACC because of the way Clemson has looked. My preseason prediction for the national championship was Texas beating Oklahoma. Texas's offense has not looked good. Arch Manning has not looked like a Heisman contender, but we still have a lot of season left. Their defense is legitimate. Ohio State, I still very much believe, can be in the national championship game again. Penn State didn't look great against FIU, but they're still a legitimate top 5 team. Oregon, I'm still not sold on. What is your overall assessment? If you had to pick a national championship game right now, Carlos, who are you putting in there?
Honestly, I think Oregon to me impressed me. I know you're not sold on them. I like Oregon a lot. I think if they're going to make a move, I think this is a year to make it. I think the national champion probably comes out of the Big Ten again. I don't see the SEC teams. They're good. They're really good. But I don't see there being a dominant SEC team like we've seen in the past, like the old Alabama teams. Like the Georgia team this year is okay. I don't think they're as good as they've been in the past.
They've been banged up on the offensive line. I mean, To me, still so early. And the thing is that, even last year, would you have picked Ohio State to win the national championship last year, like based off of what they look like, even the first, 9 weeks season? Like the end of the season with the loss to Michigan, and they were a different team in the playoff. I think this thing is so hard to handle. It's not like before where you could do it early. No, like I think there's so much in this A and B. There's still so many things they're not playing. There's a lot of football hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of games left to be played.
Armando Izaguirre, which week are you concerned about most for the 3 that week? You there?
Yeah, I can hear you're breaking up again, but I see Armando's tweet. I see you coming back now. Which weaknesses are concerned about in the first one? Listen, to me, it's just the great thing about the Hurricanes this year, I think, is because they solidified the defense, it seems, it's more about how they perform than the weaknesses on the field. I think the defensive tackles have been better than we anticipated. I think the DBs have taken a step forward. I think at this point is the Hurricanes can't beat themselves, which we've seen them do in the past. As long as they don't beat themselves, I think they should be favored in every game they play.
If Carson Beck turns the ball over once or twice the whole season, they're going to go undefeated and potentially to the college football semifinals. If he plays a clean game, they win 95% of the time, in my mind.
I think so.
Because they have the bodies up front on both sides of the line to control the line of scrimmage. So it really comes down to, does your quarterback play clean?
Right. And do you not give up big plays? Do your running backs not fumble the ball? Do you not kill yourself with penalties? Do you manage the clock well?
All legitimate things. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up with that. Carlos, thanks for coming on. Make sure you tune in to the MIA All-Day pod, which are you still doing?
It's non-existent right now. Don't worry about it. Maybe it comes back one day. Right now, we're on hiatus.
We're on hiatus. All right.
Like Supernatural that got canceled, or the show ended. See, I knew I was going to come up with the CW show name. That's the one of the two brothers that hunt demons.
That's right. It came to you.
Thank you. Took all show.
All right. All right, guys. We'll be back after the USF game with more Canes talk. That's it for Wide Right this week. We'll see you next week.
Peace.